Good afternoon and welcome to Money Tips. This is Charles Kelly. I want to talk to you today about the general turmoil going on here in the UK, and I don't think it's just restricted to this country, by the way, but what I'm seeing at the moment is strikes, gas shortages, fuel going up through the roof, higher interest rates, inflation, and it all points to what we used to call a winter of discontent and recession. Now, I can remember back quite a while ago when many years ago, decades ago, when we had this thing called a winter of discontent, where, the unions were on strike, there was rubbish piling up. We had a 3-day week at one point in the 70s where lights went out during certain days, and factories, in those days we had quite a big manufacturing base here in the UK. They were literally having to close down and run a 3-day week. So big employers that use a lot of power had a 3-day week because there was power shortages due to coal miners' strike and that sort of thing. And in those days, most of the power stations were fueled by coal that we produced in this country. Now we've sort of shut a lot of the mines down and we're trying to go green, but they're actually planning to open up some coal mines again and get them moving again because we don't want to be dependent on Russian gas. So I remember these days when there was all this discontent, and it actually brought down the Conservative government. So between the unions and the party they fund, which is the Labour Department, they managed to create enough turmoil to literally bring down a government. It was the Ted Heath government, the Conservative government at the time. And then they had a general election, Labour came back into power, and then you had Jim Callaghan, who nearly bankrupted the country. They literally had to go to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, cap in hand, to get a loan. The country was in chaos. Then Margaret Thatcher came to power for the Conservatives, and she literally clipped the wings of the unions to reduce the powers that they had, because at that time they could come out, say the rail workers. Now we've got the rail workers out on strike at the moment, but the rail workers would go out on strike, and then the coal minings would come out in sympathy, and they would, say, well, if our brothers are out on strike, our comrades, as they used to call them, we're going to come out as well. So you could have 3 or 4 unions coming out on strike to cause a national strike, and then they could go and picket. They could have pickets where they would stop people going into a factory. And this was called secondary picketing. So you could go and join a picket line that had nothing to do with you. She outlawed that and basically changed the way they had to vote for things and really curbed some of their power. The Conservatives were then in power for 17, 18 years. The Labour came in then under Tony Blair, and he restored some of these powers to unions. So we have this position in the country where governments can stay in power for, 10, 15, 18 years, and then people vote them out again. So we've got the Conservatives who've been in power here since 2010, and they seem to be coming to the end of the line in terms of their popularity, and people I think are going to try and probably vote them out at the next election. Boris had 2 bruising defeats last night in by-elections. By-election is where an MP has had to step down or dies, and then they have an election to elect a new MP for that seat alone. But they had 2 by-elections at the same time, and one of them was in Devon, where they've lost a big majority of 24,000 and lost to the Liberal Democrats. So it's not looking good for Boris, and it's not looking good at the moment for Conservatives unless they can change things and turn things around. And the biggest thing that people vote with is their pockets, right? Their wallets. If things are tight and they're suffering and they haven't got much money and the economy's tight, then they will vote for another party thinking that will make things better. So unless Boris can turn things around in the next couple of years, it looks like it could be curtains for Boris. It could even be curtains for him sooner, because his own party might vote him out and replace him with a new leader. So what I'm seeing is that there's still a lot of turmoil to come. And personally, I think this has been orchestrated by Tony Blair and Keir Starmer to disrupt things and create turmoil in the country, and then people will just blame Boris for everything. And it might sound like I'm a bit biased, but I can see what's going on, behind the scenes. At the moment, we've got a rail strike this week. So, millions of people have had their weeks disrupted. They couldn't get to work. And I know a lot of people can work from home, but there's some people who can't work from home. They need to get to work, like nurses, doctors. What about them? What about teachers who have to get to work? But the rail unions have gone ahead with this strike, and it looks like it could go on further. More industrial action is threatened by them, by other workers. We've got university lecturers currently on a sort of work to rule. We've got teachers threatening strikes. We've got BA workers, baggage handlers going to go on strike this summer. That will disrupt, millions of passengers. So things are not looking good. And the US and China, biggest economies in the world, are stalling. China's in a lot of problems. We don't hear much about China because they don't publish news like we get here when everything's a bit more transparent. But in China, we've got a debt crisis. We've got the economy slowing down. They're locking people up with these restrictions for what. Their manufacturing economy is slowing down. That's creating a problem, a supply chain problem here. And then, of course, we've got, the war going on in Ukraine. And this is affecting Germany because it looks like Germany could start bringing in restrictions on power. Saying, well, we're going to have to shut down power for certain days of the week. It looks like this could really happen. And that would be disastrous for the German manufacturing-based economy. And as I said, we had this in the 1970s. We had the Arab oil crisis as well, where oil prices shot up. Oil prices are very high at the moment. So there's a lot of parallels that we can see between that and recession, and at the same time rip-roaring inflation. So if we don't solve these problems, then we're in recession at the moment, and we're going to head further into recession. That's US, China, Germany, much of Europe, and of course the UK. Now, stock markets at the moment fell last week. I was talking about this, and they have been falling, but they've recovered a little bit this week. The Nasdaq is up a little bit. I mean, I can just show you on my phone here, the Nasdaq, and it's all in blue here at the moment. But that just tells you what it's done today. So the Nasdaq is up a couple of percent today. But if you look at the longer term trend of the Nasdaq, then it doesn't look good. I mean, if I look at, say, the last 6 months and you look at the chart of how the Nasdaq has been doing, it's not really been doing well. It looks more like a downhill skier. So that's where it was. It's just going down, really. So it's not looking great. And most of the stock markets are quite a bit down. Nasdaq, I think, is down about 30% since its high last year. The S&P and the Dow Jones, not much different. And even the darling of the Nasdaq, Netflix, is not immune to this downturn in the economy. They've lost millions of subscribers, and they're laying off workers right now. They are one of the fangs, the big five, if you like, of your Facebooks, your Googles, Netflix, that have propped up the Nasdaq. And this is one of the companies. It's been a great company, obviously, but it's now suffering a bit of competition. People are tightening their belts. People are saying, well, do I need to pay this subscription and Sky and Disney Plus? So people are, and basically bear in mind, Netflix is not a big amount of money to spend. £10, $10 a month. It's not a huge amount of money, but people are still cancelling subscriptions. So it must show that people are feeling the pinch, as it were, and things are tight. So we know that inflation is at a 40-year high, and central banks are being forced to raise interest rates to push down inflation. But they can't go too far, because if they keep pushing up interest rates, they themselves will be paying more interest on their debt. And that brings me on to interest payments just in the UK. This is, now I'm sure in the US it's worse than this, but interest payments paid by the government, well, they say the government, but it's the taxpayers paying for it, really, for last month. Do you know how much the interest they paid on their debt last month? Not for the year, not for the decade, for last month. Have a guess. I'll put you out of misery. 7.6, not million, billion. 7.6 billion. 7,000 million pounds was paid in interest last month in May by the UK government, and that's up by 3 billion. So it's nearly doubled since last year. Now I've worked out that's about 245 million a day. So if you think of your credit card, your credit card payment, how much the interest is, this is like mega interest. And interest payments, have totaled now 14 billion just in this financial year. Well, the financial year only started the month before last in April, and we've already spent 14 billion, and that's up by 10 billion more than it was last year. So taxpayers will ultimately have to fund this through higher taxes, through further borrowing, and then further payments, and that's where people are feeling the pinch, because the government would like to be able to reduce taxes, but it needs these taxes just to cover the interest. And of course, this comes out of the situation from the last 2 years where, the economy was shut down and they had to just keep sending people money just to survive. So everyone was cheering at that time. They thought, Boris and Rishi Sunak were wonderful because they're sending me all this money. But now that money's stopped and the economic realities are setting in, people don't like them so much, and now they're calling them the enemies. So it's funny how people have short memories and things can change just like that. I know there's been other problems with the government, but these problems are worldwide basically. So we're getting back to where I was then. That's where it's going. So we can see a lot of problems ahead. A lot of look at this. I mean, people are buying less at supermarkets. They've actually done a survey, the BBC, and showed how people are going into supermarkets to shop, but they're buying less food. They're shopping around. There's more use of food banks and that sort of thing. So genuinely, people are feeling the pinch. Now, I know that the media would have you believe that everybody is cash strapped, and that's not true, because people are still going on holiday. They're still buying cars. There is a disparity between the people who've got money and they're okay, and perhaps even saving money by working from home more, and the people at the bottom end where they've got no savings, they've got no money in the bank, and things are tightening up now, and they are fine. They are really feeling the pinch. So now there is something that's going on, and that's interest-free loans to help the financially vulnerable. There is a Treasury-backed scheme offering interest-free loans to financially strapped people in various parts of the UK. They plan to help about 20,000 people, which is a bit of a drop in the ocean. But these schemes will be run by credit unions and other lenders with an aim to give people emergency loans where they need money and who would not normally be able to get a loan from a bank. Why? Because they can't afford the interest. So a bank and a credit company like Wonga might look at their income and say, well, can they really afford this? And the answer will be no. So then they can go to what's called a credit union and get these emergency top-up loans. Now, they're not going to be huge, generally between about £100 and £2,000, only available to people who've been turned down initially for a loan, and the average amount borrowed will probably only be about £500, and they can borrow it for 6 to 18 months, and it will be interest-free. Average time is expected to be 12 months, and they can't have more than one loan. But this was a pilot scheme in Manchester. It's now going to be rolled out to various parts of the country. So it's good news. Now, credit unions are interesting because most people don't know anything about credit unions. When they need a loan, they go to a bank, they go to Wonga and these online lending companies that charge huge interest rates, something like 40, 50% per annum, and even more. Or they go to payday lenders that are charging, 5 or 6% a day, which is huge when you calculate that over the year. So if you need a loan, go to credit unions. Maybe it's not going to be interest free, but the interest will be much lower. Now just Google credit unions, or you might have one in your town. They generally don't have big branches like banks, but they are very useful, and they're kind of a not-for-profit type of organisation that help people in need. Now you can't go and get a mortgage from them. You can't go and get a car loan, for £50,000 from them, but they do help with more micro loans to help people out. And I think that's something you've got to look at. You've got to look at ways of tightening your belt and saving money and not getting into debt, but trying to pay off your debt during these tough times. Because, things are not, I don't think things are going to get easier in the coming months. And, you've got to look at ways of either saving money or earning more money. If what you're bringing in is not covering what is going out and you're not living within your means, then you've got to do something about that. You've either got to cut down your expenses or you've got to go and earn some more money. Now, fortunately, there's lots of part-time jobs available. There are lots of companies that need staff. So maybe you might have to do a job in the evening, just like migrants do when they come to this country. They work 2 or 3 jobs a day, and they work 7 days. They don't think about having weekends off. I know lots of migrant people that in this country that regularly work 7 days a week. They don't have days off. They don't sit at home watching TV all the time. Even in the evenings, they're doing something. They're working or they're studying to improve themselves so that they can get back, earn more money. So, as Jim Rohn used to say, if you will improve, everything will improve for you. If you will become better, if you will improve yourself, you will improve your chances and make yourself more valuable to the marketplace by studying. Now, that doesn't mean going back and doing a degree in philosophy for the next 5 years on the Open University. You can study very short courses. You can take courses to just get a new skill. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, but bookkeeping, for instance, bookkeepers earn quite good money. They can regularly charge a freelance bookkeeper £25, £30 an hour to do books, to do your payroll and that sort of thing. Now, you could do a bookkeeper's course where you could learn to become reasonably skilled at bookkeeping within 3-6 months, maybe a year at the most, to become a skilled bookkeeper. And then you would have a skill that you can sell in the marketplace. You would be able to go and earn good money, certainly more money than you would in an unskilled job. And that's just one thing. I mean, I'm not saying go and become a bookkeeper, but find an industry that you like working in, find something you like doing, that you enjoy doing. Obviously, if you hate figures, you wouldn't want to be sitting down doing someone's VAT all day, because it would drive me nuts. I would never like to do that. But my sister is a bookkeeper. She's a part qualified. She's not a chartered accountant, but she spent years studying in the evening to get some accountancy qualifications. I can't remember what the qualifications is called. She's not a chartered accountant, but she's got some accountancy qualifications, and she can do bookkeeping. So since then, she's never been out of work. And she went from having a job in a company at this level to that level because she studied and improved herself, gained a new skill, and made herself more valuable to the marketplace. So if you're on minimum wage now, that is probably what that job is worth. It's worth minimum wage. And you can't say to your boss, well, I want more than the minimum wage, when the boss said, well, that's what the job is worth. So if you're working in KFC, just doling out chicken, then they're probably going to pay you near the minimum wage or just above it. Or if you're serving coffee in a cafe, they're probably not going to pay you huge amounts of money. Now, if you can get yourself to a position where you're more valuable to the marketplace, and get a job which then does pay more, rather than saying, well, I'm complaining about what you're earning in that minimum wage job. Do you see what I'm saying? You've got to improve yourself before you can get out there and earn more money. Now, maybe some of you are saying, well, I've got a degree and the only job I can get is working in Starbucks. Well, yeah, that might take time. Some young people have found that they can't get the job that suits their degree. But some of these degrees can be a little bit vague in terms of what's needed in the marketplace. Now, obviously, if you've got a law degree, and there are tens of thousands of lawyers out there qualifying every year because it's a popular course, it might be difficult to get a job with a top law firm. But with a law degree, you can get other types of job. Treasury employ thousands of lawyers. Lots of companies want law qualified people, but it might be difficult to become a solicitor or get yourself a pupillage in a solicitor's firm or become a barrister. So yeah, some of those people with degrees are not necessarily getting the job they want. But I'll give you another example. My son had a degree in music technology, but he found that it was very difficult to work in that industry. The money wasn't good, the hours were long, there wasn't much future in what he was doing. So he went back to university and got a master's in technology and business. And since then, he's never been out of work and he's never looked back since then. So he looked at the marketplace and decided, well, I'm pretty good at this, I'm pretty good at technology. And he went back and studied with my money, as it were. But, he took the time to do a master's, and then immediately he became more employable and was able to earn more money that enabled him then to go on to buy a property. Okay, so that's just a little bit advice as to what you can do. It doesn't mean you have to go and study right now. There are plenty of part-time jobs where if you're not earning enough in your own job, then, and you know, if you can spend maybe 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 evenings a week doing a part-time job, you can top up your income. So look, this has never been a better time to really learn how to manage your money, how to control your expenditure, how to get your finances in order. Now, I can teach you more about this in my private calls, in my private community, and teach you how to create more wealth and also buy and control property without using your own money. So I'm going to put a link up there to my Wealth Accelerator call. It's a free offer. We do a half-hour call on Zoom to give you, to really point you in the right direction, to give you that focus to really see where you can go. Now, the other thing I want to just mention quickly is that, you know, some of you may know that I've started my own estate agency firm in the Watford, Borehamwood, Elstree, Borehamwood sort of area. South Herts, we're called Open House South Herts Limited, Open House South Herts. Please look at our Facebook page, Open House South Herts, and give me a thumbs up, give me a like on that page so it improves the algorithms on Facebook. I appreciate that. And we've got lots of properties there actually that are in, we've got an auction department, and we're auctioning quite a few properties, good bargain properties actually, really cheap flats. Some of them are cheap because they just want a quick sale. Some of them are cheap because they've got a shorter lease, so the lease needs extending. Now, a lot of people can't get a mortgage on that type of property, but if you can raise the cash, maybe your own cash, maybe using other people's money, you can buy that property with a short lease, get the lease extended, and immediately add value to the property. Some of the deals on there are just there because the vendor, it could be a housing association, it could be anything. It could be they just want a quick sale and they don't want any messing around with the normal way of selling properties. So have a look at that Facebook page. There's some interesting properties there. And if you want to sell your property quickly, like you don't want to go through the normal estate agency process of maybe taking months, if you just want a quick sale, we've got an auction offer where we can sell your property with no fees. So you won't pay the fee as the vendor selling the property. That's the auction deal I can offer you. And we can explain that. So you'll have to get on a call with me to see how that would work if you want a quick sale. But we've got lots of properties up there, and we've got a special summer offer for our estate agency, a special deal for the summer because we're launching this summer. But have a look at the auction stuff that I put up on our Facebook page, and if you're interested in those, just message us. So thanks for listening. Have a great weekend wherever you are, and stay safe out there, and do learn to manage your money. If you need any help, click on my link there below. Thanks very much. Bye for now.